I made all conference in football up in Omaha a couple of years when I played, and I was a decent wrestler, involved in a lot of stuff. I don't want you to think that I was on the streets, homeless, lying in the gutters, because most of the people that are drug and alcohol addicted are not that way. Most of them are functioning users and abusers, and that's how I was. I was able to keep jobs. I was able to maintain this facade, this phoniness, so that most people had no clue of what I would do in my free time, in my private time. But over time, it builds up, and it leads to other things. I mentioned that when you're high, you want one thing to be higher. These days, for the past 6 or 7 years, a big part of my ministry is going to youth detention centers, jails for kids. I go in with boys that are between the ages of 12 and 18 years old and are in lockup behind razor wire, steel doors, bars. Sometimes shackled, hand and feet, told when to eat, told when they can go into their room, which is a concrete cell about this wide and about this long that two guys share. They're locked in with a little glass window about this big at night. Then they come out into the group room, which is maybe a third the size of this room, where 30 guys will hang out all day, except when they're told to go do something, when they're ordered to go do this, ordered to go do that. These kids are in here for a variety of reasons, and it breaks my heart. They're all God's children, and they're just like I was, but they got caught. I never got caught. I came very, very close to getting caught one time. Very close. I still look back and just shake my head. It was a miracle that I didn't get arrested that night. In those days, marijuana was thought of as a pretty big deal. It carried a mandatory minimum sentence of 10 years in prison. I talk with these kids in jail each week when I go in to do the Bible studies, and I tell them, when they'll ask, were you ever in lockup? No. I could have been, I would have been. And when I look back, a lot of times I think, I should have been. Maybe if I would have gotten caught a little bit, maybe if I would have even done a couple of days in lockup, I wouldn't have wasted 20 years of my life. It wouldn't have taken me until I was 33 years old to begin to see the light. When I ask these boys in my group, usually we'll break up into groups of about 15, and as I get a new group and get to know them, I'll ask them a couple of questions. How many of you guys were drunk or high when you committed the crime that caused you to do time? Almost every hand will go up every time. And I'll ask these kids, how many of you are from households where you didn't have a dad around while you were growing up, or maybe don't even know who your father is? Almost every single hand will go up, a minimum of 12 out of 15 hands, every single time. And the past couple of times I've asked that question, one of the boys will say, what if you grew up without a mom? Does that count? Yeah, that counts. Raise your hand. And then I ask, how many of you are angry about that? And those same hands go up even higher. And that's where we start, explaining to them that you do have a Father that loves you. You do have a God in heaven, and you are His Son, and you are something special, and He created you to be something in His eyes. So where I'd like to start tonight is with the realization and the thanks to God from each of you to our Creator for the position that He's put you in. Maybe you're a foster child. Maybe you have some issues at home. I won't ask to raise hands, but if we're honest, every single hand would go up. I know both of mine would go up if we had to ask if we have issues in our home. But if you have a mom or a dad or a grandparent or an auntie or an uncle or a teacher or a neighbor or somebody who cares about you enough to take you to church, to get you into Bible school, to teach you about the Scriptures, then you have been given an incredible gift. Now the choice is yours. You don't have to follow it. We live in this land where we have freedom. And as we become adults, we get more and more and more of this freedom, and we're able to use it in any way that we want, but be smart enough not to abuse that freedom like I did. Because it leads to one thing, to another, to another. I I mentioned the fact that marijuana is such a gateway drug, and that I had encouraged my younger brothers to get involved with it. Well, it ended up that I had to bury my younger brother. Now, it didn't happen until he was 50 years old. And that may seem ancient to a lot of you, but that's young by we old guy standards. But it happened about 3 years ago. And I had to stand up in front of a room full of people about this size and do the memorial service for my brother. And the reason that he died was because he became addicted to meth. He started with one thing and went to another and another and another. He didn't know what he was getting into. He just thought he and his wife needed to stay up for a weekend and keep their eyes open and get this remodeling project done on their house. And some friends told him, hey, there's this new thing out here, meth, and man, it'll keep you awake and keep you active, and you'll get your project done in one weekend. They woke up 7 years later and had both used methamphetamines every single day. Now, my brother and his wife did an amazing thing. They quit. Less than 1% of meth users are ever able to quit that drug and to stay clean. They stayed clean for 6 years. But he was never right after that. It had messed with his body and with his mind so much that he spent half to a third of that 6 years in and out of mental hospitals. He spent a good amount of time in regular hospitals. By the time he died, he was taking 25 or 30 different medications every single day just to stay alive. His wife, who I still love very dearly, was at an NA meeting, Narcotics Anonymous. It's a group kind of like Alcoholics Anonymous where they meet and support each other to stay clean. She was playing dodgeball and tripped and fell in a grassy area, broke 11 bones. Her bones were so brittle from this drug use that she was just a walking time bomb. There are stories that are worse. Being in the news business, every single day I hear about people who have done something that ended their life. And I look back on me and I think, woulda, I coulda, I shoulda. But now I embrace life. At this point, I'm able to recognize that what I did was based on the wrong set of values, that it was based on wanting to elevate myself, wanting to run with a group of people who really didn't care about me. And I put everything that I'd learned, everything that I had valued in growing up as a young man into the background. And it just didn't work out very well for me at all. I ended up, over the years, keep in mind, outwardly, it seemed like I was a success. I was a rock and roll DJ. I got to fly around the country and go see some big concerts and meet a lot of the big stars of the day. And I thought it was really cool. I thought I was just awesome. I look back and most of those people now, I could tell you their names and you'd go, huh? Who? Because that's how fame and fortune is for most people. It's here today and it's gone tomorrow. Jesus Christ is eternal. He was here at the beginning and he'll be here at the end. He's the Alpha and the Omega. And when you mention his name and the fact that you got to spend time in his presence, it's not like me getting to go backstage for 5 minutes somewhere and being treated like garbage by some big star of the moment and thinking I'm cool. It's not the same thing. It's not a fair trade. On the outward side, it seemed like I was a success. I was making more and more money and I was getting bigger and bigger jobs and I got to move up into management and I got to do a lot of things that were seemingly cool. But on the inside, I was dying. I was depressed to the point of often being suicidal. And I hate to even mention that word around young people because there is such an epidemic in our society today. But I have to tell you that while for long periods of time, I thought there's no reason to go on. Everything is so meaningless. It doesn't matter whether or not I'm here tomorrow. Who cares? Who will know? When I look back from now to then,